President Trump, who boasted on the campaign that he could end the Ukraine war in 24 hours, spent 2.5 hours on the phone today trying to do just that.
By the time he hung up with Vladimir Putin, the Russian president had agreed to an immediate pause on attacks on energy infrastructure targets, but not to a broader 30-day ceasefire.
Still, the White House called it a first step towards peace. Holly Williams is in Ukraine. Holly?
Good evening. After that call between President Trump and Vladimir Putin, the Kremlin said tonight that Russia will only agree to a long-term ceasefire if all foreign military aid to Ukraine is stopped.
In a forest just north of Kyiv, we met a team of unpaid volunteers training on air defense systems. Their job is to shoot down deadly Russian drones. With many of this country's men serving on the front line, the majority are women, and they all come from the town of Bucha and the surrounding area. Bucha was the scene of a massacre by Russian forces at the start of Vladimir Putin's invasion. The Russians executed civilians on the street. Olena Akuma is an artist who told us she survived the occupation of Bucha with her 2 children. After 3 years of war, she'd like a ceasefire, but she has conditions.
If Vladimir Putin says, yes, I agree to a ceasefire, but only if the US stops supplying Ukraine with weapons, would that be okay with you?
No, she told us. How can we believe Putin when our head is in his mouth? Since the start of this war, the US has committed over $100 billion to support Ukraine. This country's trying to become more self-reliant. Ukraine says it now makes 30% of its own weapons.
We're making it for survival of the country.
Vladislav Belbas owns a Ukrainian weapons company, but told us without a continued supply of American arms, Russia will overrun his country.
So actually, they feel the power to invade other countries.
So you're saying if Russia succeeds here in Ukraine, it will give it the confidence to invade other countries and start more wars?
Of course.
And Holly, as I'm watching all this, I can't help but wonder, is Vladimir Putin serious?
Well, look, from Vladimir Putin's perspective, agreeing to halt strikes on energy infrastructure may help it look like he's doing something and being responsive to President Trump's desire to end the war, but without actually stopping the war. And to that point, soon after the call ended, air raid sirens sounded around Ukraine tonight.
And Holly, Putin has put a condition on ending the war completely on a complete cessation of foreign military and intelligence assistance. Is that just a delaying tactic during negotiations?
Well, John, it might be. But interestingly, after that contentious meeting between President Trump and Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky at the White House last month, the US actually did briefly suspend deliveries of military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. So now the question is whether Trump would be willing to do that long term as part of a negotiation with Putin.